Hello out there. Coming to you with some of my recent thoughts, inquiries, discoveries, realizations, experiences. And I love that listening to my friend Jackie Van Campen lately, her sharing that she loves to share from her experience, and that just makes sense to maybe only talk about things that we've experienced. And so I love to embrace that that's what I feel like I'm doing here, just sharing from my experience, my realizations, even from just minutes ago. So I'm right there with you on things like today's topic, which is important for me. I don't know about you, but I realize over the years, for sure, I have been interested in this thing called happiness, right? Studying what seems to work, trying different ways of life, right? In this pursuit of happiness. And a lot of us could question, well, what could be wrong with pursuing happiness, right? And maybe that's the whole goal of life. And certainly an interest for a lot of us, right? But I've started to see with some of my recent studies on happiness, I guess, and getting into different traditions and philosophies that can help us deal with this thing called life that is so interesting, right? And can be so challenging, especially as we're looking to be happy, to find happiness. And so this seems like an important piece along my journey that I wanted to share with you, that it definitely seems true and possible, and I can see for myself as well, that sometimes at least when we're pursuing happiness, it can actually make us more unhappy. And here's some of what I'm seeing about why that could be true. So, pursuing happiness, right, sounds all good, sounds like a great life's ambition, but we can start to see that, and again, this really comes from my awareness with myself, much less my work and play with others, is where is that pursuit coming from, right? And we might think that it's coming from a longing and a desire, and that yes, it's good to have our eye on, our focus on what we do want, and this awareness of our power of creating in our lives, right? And I do believe that we have such a power of creating in our lives, and we do want to have an eye on what we want and finding the ways to put our energy and attention and intention into that. But I can also see that sometimes when we're pursuing happiness, it can be coming from this place of, first of all, not thinking that we are happy, right? Which may be a truth, maybe an awareness that's helpful, but it also may put us in a focus on how unhappy we actually are. And some of that pursuit of happiness may also come from this deep-seated belief that maybe we're not enough, or we're not worthy, or that maybe part of being a good human is to be always improving ourselves and making ourselves better, which again, we could say sounds good, but what about when it comes from this place of lack of worth, lack of self-love, and even can become a source of judgment and even self-hate and disconnection with ourselves, right? Much less how it's going to play into our dynamics with others. So, first of all, yeah, looking at that pursuit of happiness, what about when it's coming from this place of lack of worth, lack of belief, right? And actually keeping us in that place as we keep thinking that there's something better ahead. And another danger right there we can see, which we learn this from different philosophies like yoga and meditation, how being present can be such a part of being happy, right? Being able to actually be in our moments, experience our moments, be here with our minds, our attention, our focus, our awareness, right? So that we can actually be here now for the happy parts of life, which a lot of us can even find that challenging. And that's part of what I can see this pursuit of happiness could potentially do to create more unhappiness, is that it may get us out of the moment more, right? That we get really future oriented about what we're creating and what we're moving towards, and we forget to be here now, which is actually such a part of happiness. And along that line with this pursuit of happiness could come as we're judging and analyzing and maybe learning and feeling like we're feeding ourselves with different approaches, that we could also see it might also be busying our mind right? Giving us just more to think about, more to ruminate about, more to even get distracted by. And a lot of that just, again, can be part of our personal growth, but also can be part of just creating a busier, even more of a monkey mind, right? And that too does not go with happiness, it turns out, when we just have a busy mind or an overloaded mind. And so taking us out of the moment, getting us maybe too in the mind, too in the future, right? And also in this place of judgment with ourselves and our current reality. And I can also see that this pursuit of happiness, perhaps along with these other aspects, could get us out of appreciation and just gratitude, right, for what is, which turns out feels really good and is a big part of actual happiness, to be able to just feel thankful for what is, right? And then unfortunately, sometimes our pursuit of happiness may get us so focused on what isn't yet that we're forgetting to be thankful for what is and where we are and what is true, right? That may be part of happiness in a sense. And I can also see that this pursuit of happiness, I don't know about you, but for me, it's gotten me confused along the way too, that maybe it's not okay to have hard or bad feelings, and that we're failing if we're having hard feelings or bad days, if we're feeling depressed or sad or anxious. So looking at how the pursuit of happiness, which seems like such a wonderful pursuit, right, but could actually get us in less of a happy space because we're in that judgment, we're not in that gratitude too, which, and then if we like to think of it as a spiritual thing, oh, and I love it, I see my friend Zamara's here just in time for that, as we're getting spiritual about it. If we want to feel more spiritually connected, if that's an important thing to us, then that really does go with this very different orientation to happiness, right? Which is more about being thankful for what is, being present here and now, right? Even with the hard things, and finding a way to be embracing that, right? And that actually can be what's going to create happiness, right? Instead of what we might think that getting out of those problems is where we're going to finally be happy. Although interestingly, one of the books that really got me thinking about this that I've been listening to, it's so amazing and actually a very spiritual book, but it's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And it's very similar, it reminds me of Essentialism, which I read in a group with Zamara. And it's this idea that we need to be choosing what we give a fuck about, basically what we're putting our attention into, and because that's a big part of our happiness, it turns out. So part of that, though, was showing me and reminding me that part of happiness is actually solving problems and kind of recognizing that life is always going to have problems. That's part of this awareness that maybe our current culture presents as if when we're really happy, we're never having any problems and we always feel really good. And so that pursuit of that goal, right, which isn't realistic or whole, right? And even, again, if we're getting back to spiritually, if we start to believe that those harder times, those harder moments, those challenging situations are actually part of what are growing us, right, and changing us and even healing us, that those could be part of our happiness. So when we think that just getting rid of problems is what's going to be part of happiness, right, we can see how that can make us more unhappy. First of all, because we can start to see that there's no life without problems, right? That's the awareness that comes up in this book and over the ages, right? It's also what like people like Buddha were saying, that life is suffering, right? And that we can kind of realize there's always going to be suffering, there's always going to be challenge, there's always going to be problems. And so actually our happiness comes from solving our problems, right? And just kind of realizing as much as we can, if we can choose what our problems are going to be, basically like choose where we're going to put our attention and our focus and our energy, and that's where we could be like choosing what we give a fuck about, right? That's the way that book presented it. But that's going to be part of this happiness equation that so many of us may be looking for, that we've been missing. We've been thinking that happiness isn't going to come until we're problem free or until those problems go away, but it's actually happiness comes through solving the problems, right? And that's just life. Like every life has problems. Every day is going to have something, right, that could be considered a problem. And so that's even part of happiness, is embracing that life has problems, right? And everybody's got their problems. And then again, really nice if we can just be thankful for what our problems are and feel like we have some choice in what sorts of problems we're finding ourselves solving in life and in the world, right? So just really interesting for me to see how the pursuit of happiness can be a slippery slope to just more unhappiness, right? And also mainly because if we're getting spiritual, that it's a real spiritual disconnect, right? To be so focused on getting out of right now and what's wrong with right now, and that happiness must involve getting somewhere else and even being somewhere else and being someone else. I'm definitely guilty of that. Like always in this self-improvement quest, which again, I think I like, it sounds good, and I'm all about personal development, but also if I'm going to be more spiritual about it and decide that I'm like a child of God, right, then how connected is that for me to be always thinking I need to change that or pick this apart or decide what's wrong with this creation, right, that could be as divine creation, right, as I get in that awareness. So yeah, just interesting to look at and be aware of how pursuit of happiness, as great as it sounds, could actually make us more unhappy. And this is really an awareness for me, and even how I want to be making sure with my sharing here that I'm not getting us in that place of like, let's always improve ourselves, let's always aim for something better in any ways that's going to rob us of true happiness, right? Which does seem to have so much to do with being present, being thankful for what is, dealing with our problems, solving our problems, right? And being in that more connected perspective and looking at ourselves that we are perhaps these perfect beings, right? And, which I laugh because that's like so hard for me to believe about myself, but I can believe it about you. So anyways, I hope that's helpful. Let me know what you think. And I'm going to keep making sure that I'm paying attention to my pursuit of happiness, and even how I'm talking about things like this in my sharing here with you, so that I don't lead any of us, myself included, just to more unhappiness in this pursuit of happiness. And that maybe just the whole aspect of pursuit is something we want to look at least, especially like what energy are we coming from? What influence are we under in that pursuit? Is it from fear, right? Or is it from love? Yeah. So hope that's helpful. Love you guys so much. Hope you're having a happy day out there, but right, happiness includes all the emotions, all the feelings. So hoping you're just embracing what is for you, and I'm going to aim to do that too, and just be thankful, right, as part of that pursuit of happiness. All right, namaste.